The mixtape is never just about the music. It's a map of emotion, a trail, a journey I gravitate towards on heavy evenings when the sun shifts downwards and the breeze is warm. When I find myself drawn to the road, off the grid of familiarity, and onto the concrete arteries that wind through farmland and forest until I'm nowhere in particular. And yet, I never feel alone, because always beside me is a passenger. Sometimes moody, sometimes joyful, sometimes nostalgic or rebellious or full of longing. My companion on the road is the music. The source varies, but the best drives, the ones that draw their paths into memory, those happen when the playlist is one I made myself. Because good playlists, like the mixtapes before them, are never just about the music. Marshall McLuhan, the Canadian media ecologist, famously wrote that the medium is the message. In other words, it is not just what you say, it's how you say it that shapes meaning. And music is no exception. There was a time when making a copy of a song required machines the size of refrigerators. While these periods had extraordinary artists and incredible music, especially live music, most of the recorded music was what the industry giants decided to distribute. They controlled much of what the people heard. But then, in 1962, something revolutionary happened. A piece of plastic and magnetic tape changed everything. The cassette tape was invented. Small, portable, it could be played almost anywhere. In boom boxes, cars, and more importantly, there were devices, tape decks, that could record music onto these cassettes. Popularity grew in the 70s, and then in the 80s it really caught on. But it wasn't perfect. The sound quality had quirks, the plastic cases cracked easily, the tape could be unwound, but it changed something big, because for the first time, anyone could record music. Anyone could curate. The barriers came down, and with that, a new form of art was born. The mixtape. At first, it was apparently rough around the edges. You'd hover near the boombox radio, finger on the record button, hoping the DJ didn't talk over the intro. You would scramble to stop the tape before the next song bled in. Some songs cut off mid-note. Many carried faint hiss of static beneath them. But none of that mattered, because these weren't meant to be perfect compilations. They were personal creations. As David Byrne wrote in How Music Works, other people's music, ordered and collected in infinitely imaginative ways, became a new form of expression. You made mixtapes that corresponded to emotional states, and they'd be available to pop into your deck when each feeling needed reinforcing or soothing. Mixtapes were crafted with heart, for long car rides, for parties, for friends, for crushes, for no reason at all, except that someone needed to create. And this was the medium that made it possible. I was a bit too young to remember those times, but by the 1990s, I do remember how CDs refined the art. They had cleaner sound, better track control. I remember carrying CD binders in the 2000s, flipping through pages like a personal library of emotion. You'd hand one to a friend and say, skip to track 3. There was choreography, character, flow. The albums were great, but the playlist was where those personal, magical moments happened. And in college, it leveled up. Art clubs would host CD swaps. These were in-person community group meetups. At that point, many of us had iPods, but CDs were still used to share the music. There were themes and rules, no repeats from the same artist, where every song must mention weather, where the playlist has to tell a story in reverse. It was a challenge, a game, but also something more. We were trading music, and we were trading perspectives. And that is where mixtapes were never just about the music, because the real art of the playlist goes beyond the songs you choose. It's in the connections between them. The way one track dissolves into the next, the way the mood builds, dips, and then lifts again. A good mixtape moves like a story. It breathes. Done well, it creates a second journey layered on top of your own. There's a road beneath you, yes, but also the emotional terrain formed by tone, rhythm, and memory. the playlist becomes both compass and company. And when given to someone else, it becomes something truly meaningful. There is something unspoken but deeply moving about receiving a mixtape. A CD handed over, handwritten title scrawled in Sharpie, maybe some doodles on the case, maybe a note inside. You knew immediately that someone spent time, not just choosing songs, but thinking of you while doing it, wondering how track 7 would hit you, hoping track 8 would surprise you. It was a message, not in the lyrics necessarily, but in the contrast and comparison. Someone showed you how they experienced the world through the medium of music. It was a way to say, here's how I feel, or here's what I hope you'll understand, or simply, here's something beautiful I want you to have. But then came the cloud. Streaming arrived in a wave of inevitability. Convenience won. Curation became automated. Discover Weekly, Release Radar, chill mixes. No effort required. Just tap play. And let's be honest, these platforms do it well. The algorithms are uncanny. I found songs I really like because of them. Songs I never would have stumbled across otherwise. But I've also lost something. Because I can't remember the last time a friend sent me a playlist. Not a link to a song, not a short, but a playlist. One with intention. And here's what's strange. There are more amazing independent artists than ever before. The barriers to creating music have never been lower. Yet somehow, the algorithm often determines what even shows up in our search results. In many ways, we're sliding back to the time before the mixtape, where the choice of what we discover is returning to the hands of a select few. Think about it. These algorithmically created playlists blend seamlessly from song to song. They know the new releases you'll probably like. They understand your listening patterns better than you do. But do they know your life, your personality? The surprising quirks that make you, you? No, but your friends do. They know when you need a pick-me-up. The algorithm just knows you skipped 3 ballads in a row. Your friends know when you need to be challenged, exposed to a new artist or genre that might expand your world. The algorithm just knows it has a quota of promoted tracks to slip into your feed. What we gained in access, we are losing in intimacy. But maybe there's a way back. There is this really nice idea called pebbling, the act of offering small tokens to show affection. Penguins do it apparently. They bring each other pebbles. On social media, we pebble constantly. Memes, reels, GIFs, little digital gestures. But a playlist? That's not a pebble. That is a crystal, a hand-picked gift. It requires time, attention, effort, and in an era where everything moves fast, that kind of slowness matters. So maybe it's time to bring it back, that mixtape mindset, the art of intentional music sharing. Host a playlist night or a music road trip. Trade themes. Let limitation drive creativity. Or maybe just make one for someone you care about. Don't tell them the theme. Let them hear it unfold. Technologies come and go. The mediums change. But community? That's what actually matters. The magic of a playlist is in the connections between songs and the connections between us. And when those connections become memories, and those memories fuse themselves to the space between songs, these playlists can create those needed connections that exist within us. So take a drive with no destination. Trust the roads. Trust the playlist. There's something beautiful about arriving home right as the final track fades. Like the universe just sent you a wink. Through combining songs into a great playlist, we reveal how we hear the world. It maps emotion. And sharing that with someone else, in a time when the algorithm knows our taste better than our friends do, there's something quietly radical about saying, I made this for you. The mixtape was never just about the music. In the spirit of this idea, I've made a playlist just for those who watch this video. The link is below. Do you think that streaming has turned the playlist into a lost art? Or do you still make playlists? If you do, please share your music in the comments. I will look at them all. And if you're drawn to this space where stories meet reality and where technology becomes mythology, please consider subscribing. My name is Michael. See you next time.